22nd, 2022, and I'm actually going live early, about an hour. And the reason why is because it's going to be very hot and humid here in the Atlanta area. So I don't want my phone to fry like it did a couple of days ago. Fortunately, I was like done with my broadcast when I was kind of finishing things up, but a couple of days ago I was out at the lake and the phone got too hot, and I was kind of surprised because I was under mostly trees and their leaves. But anyway, decided to go live here on Friday an hour early, so therefore if you're not able to catch me live, and you can catch me after I post this. So anyway, happy Friday to everyone. I'm curious. And I got married to my wife back in March of last year. And it's interesting because she grew up in the South, I grew up in the Midwest, and she largely does not have an accent. She can if she wants to, but she's learned to make sure that she talks a little like the general populace would be, because she actually worked in a couple different companies where she needed to make sure that she didn't have the accent. She learned basically that if she had the southern accent, that people from the West Coast and so forth might respond in different ways. So anyways, what's interesting is I'll say some things that maybe she would say it differently. And one of the things that's interesting to me is, she has a dog named Lily that is awesome. We take Lily everywhere, all over America when we do ministry. And when it comes to taking a bath, I will say it's time to take your bath, Lily. And she thinks it's funny because she's like, you know what? We don't say that in the South. We just say it's time to take a bath. And, sometimes I'll say, I'm going to go take my shower. And she kind of laughs a little bit. And she's like, wow, that's funny. We don't say that. We just say, I'm going to take a shower. And so I'm just curious to those that are watching is, do you say, hey, I'm going to go take my bath? Or do you say, I'm going to take a bath? Or do you say, I'm going to go give, or maybe it's time for the baby to take her nap versus a nap? So anyway, it's funny because you travel all over the country and people say things differently. Obviously, there's accents that are different in the South than they are in the Northeast, than they are in the Midwest, maybe even the West Coast. So how many of you say it's time to take your bath? Yeah, the other thing, Tina just said wash. I'll say this, is when I was growing up, in second grade, my dad and my oldest brother would say, you need to go wash yourself, like W-O-R-S-H. And then I remember my teacher said it's wash, W-A-S-H. So I purposefully would say wash. It's time to go wash yourself, or wash the car, wash the whatever. So do you guys, I think it's a Midwest thing that people would say wash. Same thing with like, pop. In fact, I remember when I was first talking to my wife when we were getting to know each other, and I said the word pop, and she laughed. She said, pop? What is pop? I'm like, like soda, soft drinks. And she's like, oh, Coke? And I'm like, Coke? I'm like, well, yeah, but I like, root beer or Sprite. We can't call everything Coke if you don't like Coke, and, Pepsi. And she's like, no, we just say Coke for soft drinks in the South. And of course, it's because Coke's headquarters is here. So anyway, it's funny how people grow up in different, how we have really different cultures within the United States, obviously different regions. The South is different than Texas, although they do say y'all in the South and in Texas. And in Texas, they say, I'm fixin' to go take care of, I'm fixin' to go give my dog a bath. Or I'm fixin' to go to attend a breakthrough event and get delivered from my demons. I'm fixin' to. So I remember talking to some people in Texas. I go, does that mean that you're considering it? That you may not do it? you're kind of fixing to. It's like I'm fixing to get delivered, but I'm not sure if I will. So anyways, it's something that I think it's a fun thing to talk about. All right, so Breakthrough Tour continuing. July 31st is the next Worldwide Deliverance Session. That's a week from Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 9 a.m. on Monday out in Perth, Australia with Debbie Tanner and the group from out there. I see my wife on YouTube laughing, I'm sure. And then August 12th, coming to Malvern, Arkansas, Changing Lives Ministry, Friday night, 7 p.m. August 13th, Hot Springs, Arkansas, Shalom Women's Center. That starts at 6 p.m. It's also open to men and women. And then, let me see. It's funny, reading the comments on YouTube. Let's see, and then Worldwide Deliverance, August 28th, and then September 16th, coming to Bloomington, Illinois. We'll let you know. They're confirming the location right now, but September 16th, that is a Friday night. They've been doing revival there, so you really can't have revival unless you get healed and delivered. That's so true, because there's so many people that are not healed, not delivered, that are still got soul wounds. They've not got healed. They've not forgiven people. They've got pride. They've got demons. So it's so critical that to truly be set free, to truly be a real Christian, we need to get set free from those wounds. We need to make sure that there's nothing that we have in common with these demonic spirits. We don't want to have legal rights given to the demonic spirits, and we talked about that yesterday. So the topic of the day is how do you know that you have truly forgiven those who hurt you? I hear that question a lot. How do you know if you've forgiven someone? Well, I'll tell you this. If you've not forgiven someone, you're gonna talk about the hurts and the wounds frequently. That will tell you that you've not forgiven. Because why? Because those memories of those traumas and largely demonic spirits will give you thoughts saying, hey, don't you remember all the bad things that were done to you, all the bad things that were said to you, all the betrayal that they did to you? So you can't forget. And if you can't truly forget, now it doesn't mean that once you've forgiven, you can still remember it, but it's not like it's top of mind on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis. It's like the things that I went through, it's like I don't think about them. If somebody brings it up, then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I can laugh about it. If you're still angry and bitter and vengeful and talking about it to other people and trying to spread lies, rumors, and gossip, then you've not forgiven. You're bitter, you got demons, and you'll get sicker and sicker, and you could die prematurely. Ananias and Sapphira, for example, now they were in sin. They lied and they got taken out, but there's people that have the Jezebel spirit. It talks about that in Revelation 2:18 through 23, that if we tolerate Jezebel, it's not a good thing, but God says that I'll put Jezebel on a sickbed and I'll kill her children with death. So it's imperative that you forgive. Of course, if we don't forgive others, it's Matthew 6:14 through 15. If we don't forgive others for their sins against us, trespasses, then God's not going to forgive us. And so there's a ton of people in the church that would call themselves Christians, and they're so mad, they're so angry, so bitter. They're a mess. They have a lot of demonic spirits. Now, they'll act like they're a little innocent victim. They'll talk a good game. They oftentimes prey upon people for their money. But if they get into a relationship, they'll end up self-sabotaging it. They'll go off on them, over and over and over again. And then they'll lose that relationship. And there's a lot of people that operate out of that spirit of Jezebel and Leviathan. And they'll oftentimes say, I've forgiven everybody. Oh, I've forgiven everybody. How dare you accuse me of not forgiving? And I'm like, really? I don't think you've forgiven. So ultimately, the enemy wants to hurt us through other people deeply by what they say and or do to us. Traumatizing us, wounding us. People with demons think that they own you and can tell you anything and expect you to do what they demand. Betrayal from a person who said that they loved you, but then hurt you and lied about you is especially painful. Especially from a parent, especially from a spouse. Pain from someone who emotionally physically or sexually abused you can feel extreme, and the victim will think about it over and over and over again, like thousands of times. And they can oftentimes feel the effects physically in their body. Hey, I'm gonna move. The sun is now like on my camera and stuff. I'm gonna move this out. Let's see here. There we go. Because I don't want my stuff to fry. In fact, I'm gonna move it over here. Hello. I thought I had it situated, but apparently, there we go. I think it's out of the sun, because we do not want my stuff to overheat, and it will do that when it's hot. All right, so anyway, the goal of demonic spirits is to hurt a person, oftentimes from their fathers, from their mothers. They love that to happen, because when you have your own dad or own mom talk mean to you, treat you badly, that's not supposed to happen. And so then to forgive them, most people don't. They can't get over it. They remember all the words that were said to them, all the bad things that were done to them, and then they'll trigger and they'll go off on their present relationships, and they will self-sabotage their own relationships. So if you continue to think about all the bad things that were done to you all the time, you've not forgiven, not at all. And how do you know when you are truly, and you have truly forgiven? That means you're not thinking about it like maybe once every blue moon. Once in a while you might think, oh yeah, but they did bad things to me, but it's just a matter of fact that that's what happened. And when I think about some of the people that have treated me bad, I don't have anger and bitterness. I have compassion for them. I'm like, they need healed, they need delivered, so that they can actually live productive, godly Christian lives, instead of being mad and angry and bitter and acting like they're a victim forever, because then they do nothing for the Lord. And then are they really saved? Are they truly saved? That can be a huge question mark, that in many cases they're not. Not if they're still angry, bitter, wanting to have vengeance upon people and pay them back. And because in many cases they were at fault, they end up self-sabotaging their own relationship, and then that breaks, and then they're so mad and angry that the person's separated from them for good reasons, and they can't see it, because the demons have blinded them, and they look in the mirror at themselves like they're a victim all the time. That's what their false narrative is coming up with false narratives. So, all right, so again, betrayal from a person who said they loved you, but then they hurt you and lied about you is especially painful. From a parent or a spouse. Pain from someone who emotionally, physically, or sexually abused you can feel extreme. And you'll have demonic spirits because of that. So you are hurt, you are wounded, you'll get demonic spirits that will remind you of all the bad things. They want you to never forgive, truly. And most people in the church would say, oh yeah, I've forgiven them, I've forgiven them. I'm like, okay, well, what if that person you saw on the street, what if they walk like right past you, and they've never, ever said they owned the bad things that they did? How would you respond? How would you feel physically in your body? Would you like, I want to punch them, I'm so mad, I'm so angry? Helicopter, I hear a helicopter. There it goes, right over the top of me. I love doing my lives outside, if you did not notice. I don't like doing lives inside. Partly, I'll explain this, why I like to do them outside is because there's a freedom, there's a peace when you're outside in God's creation. He created these trees, He created the woods, He created the streams and the lakes and the oceans and all that. And people who are healed and delivered, they have peace in their life, and they want to be around peaceful things. I don't want to be in a busy city where there's honking and ambulances and people yelling and flipping people off and all that stuff. Even though I know I have to go into the cities and do ministries and so forth, but my preference is to be out in the country where it's peaceful. Of course, I also grew up in the country. Actually, I grew up the first 5 years in a small town called Columbia City, Indiana, which my associate, Tina Kirkpatrick, knows about, because actually she grew up in Columbia City, west of Fort Wayne, Indiana. But then I moved out into the country. I know that she actually also moved out into the country too. So anyway, when you're out in the country, typically it's quiet, it's peaceful. And so anyway, I do my lives outside. I know there's not too many people that do ministry outside because you don't know what you're going to get. Now, I could have a deer walking behind me. I could have a bear that would come out. I could have an alligator. Remember the alligator, the kayaking adventure that my wife and I did down in Florida, where we actually went by like a 15-foot alligator. It was huge, humongous. If you've not seen that, it's on YouTube. All right, let me go back. So when you are healed, when you are delivered, you're going to have a lot of peace, a lot of joy, a lot of fun, a lot of laughter. You're not going to look at yourself as a victim. You're not going to say, woe is me. You know, you can remember the bad things that happened to you without the associated emotion that's negative that's tied to it. If you're not healed and delivered yet, you're going to continue to lament about it, talk about it. You may talk ad nauseum about it with someone, and they might get tired of it and say, will you stop lamenting about that? You know, move on. You've not moved on yet. And it's true. There's some people that years later are so mad and angry. And in some of those relationships, they're the ones that self-sabotaged. But it would have begun when they were little, when they were a little boy, a little girl. It could have been sexually touched, could have been molested, things like that. So those with demons, I'll explain, have double standards by being able to lie and twist the truth and tell as many people who will listen about the lies, while true Christians are told to take it and minimize any discussions about it. People with demons will have strong pride. They will accuse you of being the way that they actually are. So, when you are hurt and wounded by your father, by your mother, by your mentors, there could be mentors or there could be people that would call themselves prophets that would speak over you, and they can lie about you. They can actually bring you in and act like they're your friend initially, but then they'll start to overreach, start to control, start to manipulate. And before you know it, you're mad and you're angry because they wasted your time, they took your money, they lied about you, they acted like they were the victim. So there's multiple ways to get hurt and wounded as you're growing up. And some of you, the Lord's preparing you for ministry, that you had to go through these things. So count it all joy. You know, I count it all joy. I'm like, Lord, I go, I want to make as big an impact as possible. Again, I used to be in sales. I used to be the top sales rep for a company called Bankers Systems. They were a nationwide company in America. They had 200 sales reps. I was one of them. And I was a software specialist for the first, 6 years. I became the top software specialist. There were 16 of them. Then there were 200 reps, general reps, that sold all kinds of products. And I worked really hard 1 year and I became the top. And later, when the Lord was taking me into ministry, he said, I want you to be the top sales rep for me now in ministry, which I knew what he meant was, I want you to really help people get healed, get saved, get delivered. You know, this is a very touchy situation subject-wise, is deliverance and inner healing. The church has done a horrible job of explaining how this works. You know, most people didn't want to ever think that Christians could have demons. Well, they all do until they get healed and delivered. So how do you forgive? How do you forgive? Forgiveness is really giving your anger and your desires for justice and or vengeance to God and saying, you know what, instead of me taking it upon myself to pay this person back for what they've done to hurt me and wound me, I'm going to give them to you, God, because vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And I don't want to have God come after me, and I want to have demons come on me because I'm angry and I'm bitter and I want to pay them back. So there's a lot of people that want to pay back people, you know, and again, there's people that have gotten hurt, gotten wounded when they were little kids, and then they get into relationships when they're adults, and then they self-sabotage their own relationships because they're controlling, they're manipulative, they're jealous. They're still operating with demonic spirits. They want to act like they're a victim. So if they have a person that pulls away from them, says, you know what, you're not healthy, can't be married to you, can't be having you be my mentor, can't be in a friendship with you because you're toxic. You know, they don't like that. They'll feel rejected. They'll go off on you, trigger. They will come up with a false narrative and try to say things and do things that are not cool. I'm gonna have to move again, I think, because the sun's coming out again. It's following. Okay, let me move this over here. Hi. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's a little bit better. trying to stay out of the sun so the phone doesn't overheat. All right, so there's a percentage of people, church people largely, that are not healed of their wounds, not delivered of their demons, angry, bitter, lying about what they have done, acting like they're an innocent victim when they're not. They need to humble themselves before the Lord to get healed and delivered. So if you're still struggling with all the bad things that were done to you, again, I've done sessions with people that have been satanic ritually abused. I remember one woman explaining to me that she had a guy that dressed up as Jesus who raped her and said if there's a God, he would have stopped this, to get her to hate God. And then that's what she said to me. She's like, oh my gosh, why would God let this happen to me? I'll speak to this right now, is in large part, God lets a lot of things happen to people. They get hurt, they get wounded. Oftentimes they're innocent victims. He doesn't step in. He doesn't take an action to, I don't know, protect us from all the wounds. You know, he largely lets things play out, but then the goal is that he will bring that person around to where they can truly forgive the people that have hurt them, command the demons to go, and then they can help other people. Because if he was out there controlling everything, then we'd be like puppets. So in large parts, he lets things happen, and then it's up to us to read the Bible for ourselves and says, oh gee, Jesus, he was whipped and he was abused and he was killed, and as he was dying on the cross, what did he say? Did he say, man, I'm so mad and angry, I want them to all go to hell because they were so evil to me and I was perfect, I didn't sin whatsoever? No, he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. That's the example. And he was able to do that. He was perfect. None of us are perfect. So we're going to say things and do things that are not perfect. Now, again, we could be little kids and get hurt, and we are innocent. But then later in life, we'll have these demonic spirits, these strongholds. We will trigger on people, and we will oftentimes do bad things to other people. And the enemy wants us to blind it from ourselves so we don't see it, so we can't truly look in the mirror at ourselves. You know, the people that have followed our ministry that have gotten healing and deliverance said, you know what? I had to look in the mirror at myself. I had to say, Lord, is there anything in me that you want to take out? And the Lord's like, yeah, there's a lot in you that I want to take out. You know, I want to take out anger. I want to take out bitterness. I want to take out pride, you know, but we have a free will. We can keep it. We can lie and say, oh, no, I was completely innocent, and not be honest. When we get healed and we get delivered, then we can change, and then we can truly have a healthy life. So that is what the Lord would want. So anyway, how do you forgive? Largely, you ask Jesus to come to show you all those who have hurt you, all those who have wounded you from his perspective. That is how I take people through inner healing and deliverance sessions when I do that with people. And then they get quiet and the Lord speaks to them. And the Lord says to them, you know what? Your dad, your mom, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your mentor, they were all hurt. They were wounded. Yes, they were wrong. They had demonic spirits. They did what they did to you. But guess what? They were hurt as well. They were hurt by their mom. They were hurt by their dad. They were hurt by sexual violations. You know, that's why the neighbor touched you sexually, is because they were also molested. And then you can truly forgive from your heart. And when you truly forgive, you give them to the Lord. You can then take authority, command the demonic spirits to go, and you feel lighter. You feel more peaceful. You have more joy. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You don't think about it all the time. You may not ever think about it. You know, it's just a part of your past. So that is how you get healed from your past wounds, is you ask Jesus to come to speak to you. Sometimes Jesus will show you. He'll give you a vision so that you can actually see from his perspective and say, oh, okay, that's why my dad did that. He was hurt by his dad. Remember the shack? Remember the shack? If you've never seen the shack, I highly recommend watching it. I watched it like 3 times in 1 week when the Lord finally told me to watch it. You know, in the shack, the main character's father would drink and then beat up his mom, also would beat him up. And so he got so mad at him that he actually put poison into the alcohol, and the dad drank it and died. And but later in the movie, the dad, well, it's revealed to the kid now, who's now an older gentleman now. It was revealed to him that his own father was beaten up in the shack by his grandpa. And all of a sudden, it was like lights go on. Oh my gosh, that's why my dad did what he did. That's why he was hurt. He was wounded by his dad. And that's why he took out all his pain on my mom and on me. And he drank all the alcohol because he was wounded. And that's a counterfeit comfort that the demons told him to start to drink. And so when you can see another person from the Lord's eyes, then you can forgive them. And then the next time you remember, you don't have all the toxic emotions tied to it. You don't have the anger, you don't have the bitterness, you don't want to pay him back, you don't want to have vengeance. You're like, God, I give them to you. Give them to you. I forgive them, Lord. It doesn't mean that you re-entertain having them in your life if they've not gotten healed and delivered themselves. It wouldn't make sense to go back to a person who is toxic and spend time with them. That's why a lot of you, if you've got fathers or mothers or spouses or ex-spouses or anyone, brothers and sisters that are not healed and delivered, it doesn't make sense to continue a relationship with them or have a close relationship because they're going to say things and do things to hurt you. So if you're in a toxic relationship with someone, you will continue to get wounded by the demonic words that come out of them over and over again. So you may have to separate, you may have to part, and that's a healthy thing. Jesus came for division, didn't come for unity. He talks about that, how a man's enemies will be those of his own household, or a woman's enemies. So how do you know when you're truly forgiven? When you think about someone that hurt you or wronged you, you're not angry, you're not bitter. You just remember it's like a fact. It happened. Yep, it happened. And you may even have compassion. That's how you really kind of know that you've gotten over them or forgiven. So you've got compassion for those who hurt you and wounded you. Gee, I really pray for them. I hope that they get healed. I hope they're able to forgive. Hope they're able to get delivered from their own demonic spirits. Because if they don't, they're going to be a mess. And they're going to continue to ruin and self-sabotage their existing relationships. And then they'll try to paint themselves as a victim, and they'll get people to feel sorry for them, give them money, blah, 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 blah. And they're, in many cases, they're still not saved yet. They're still mad and angry. They've got all these demonic spirits, and they've got fruit of the flesh, and they're sexually impure. They're partiers. They can't stop drinking alcohol, can't stop smoking, can't stop doing drugs, can't stop sinning, being angry and selfish and so forth. And of course, Galatians 5:16-26 says that if you regularly practice things of the flesh, you're not going to inherit the kingdom of God. So, all right, so it's very hard to stay at peace when you're still being hurt by toxic people. Pray that the Lord will help you be removed from them, however necessary. You may have to take a step of faith to walk away. Some of you may be in toxic relationships right now, and you're got a lot of sickness on you. People that have the spirit of Jezebel will act like they're a victim. They'll take your money all day long until you have nothing left. They will treat you horribly, controlling. They will cause sickness within your own body. So that's why it's imperative to get on healthy ground, to not be cursed and treated badly and controlled, and a lot of religious people that do that. So Jesus, obviously, he wanted to stay away from the Pharisees and the scribes who hated him. But they continued to find him and approach him and follow him. So he ultimately called them vipers, snakes, whitewashed tombs, for he knew their hearts were wicked. They only did things for show to make them appear religious while they were actually pious and ungodly. So Jesus tried to stay away from the unhealthy people as well. He tried to go to those who were wounded, who had soul wounds that were being impacted, who had sickness in their bodies. A third of his ministry was deliverance, and he wanted them to get delivered. So, Jesus said, when he was dying on the cross, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. And then Matthew 6:14-15, for if you forgive men their sins, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their sins, neither will your Father forgive your sins. And that's why many are sick. That's why many are angry and bitter and self-sabotage their own relationships. Here comes that helicopter again. All right, so again, how do you know that you have truly forgiven? If someone were to bring up a person that hurt you really bad in the past, you don't get mad, you don't get angry. Another thing is you're not talking about it every day. You know, as you get healed and as you've forgiven, it's like it's a distant memory. It's like, yeah, it happened. It happened. It's like Jesus. He's like, yep, it happened. I was abused. Oftentimes he shows people his wrists that he has holes in still. Those that have seen him in real life, either up in heaven or down here. But he's not crying. He's not mad. He's not angry. So that means I can talk about those who wronged me, those who lied about me, without all the emotions that rise up that, I hope they burn. I hope they have such horribleness that happens to them and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it will kill them. You know, again, we talked about unforgiveness. 61% of people that have cancer is due to unforgiveness, is what the studies are showing. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And that's true. It will literally cause your body to have an impact from that negatively. You know, so when I hear people and see people, well, I just can't get over this. I remember one woman I took through, started to take her through a session. Actually, it was at the very beginning. No, we didn't even do a session. That's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah, I was out in Seattle and I was going to do this session with this lady. And she had all kinds of sickness in her body. And I told her the first thing you need to do is to forgive. Forgive those who would hurt you. And she's like, I will never forgive this man. He raped me from the time I was 10 until 18 or something. And I'm like, I am so sorry that that happened. That's got to be horrible. I go, but that will give you sickness and you won't be able to be healed from it if you don't forgive. And so many people believe that forgiveness is giving that person free range to get away with what they did. And I'm like, they're not going to get away. I go, but it frees you, it heals you. I go, if you hold on to that unforgiveness, it's like you're drinking poison, hoping that it's killing them, and it's killing you. When you forgive, you can see them from the Lord's perspective. You can forgive, truly, and say, oh my gosh, they were hurt when they were a little boy, they were a little girl. I forgive them, God. And then you can actually, and when you really know that you have forgiven, you have compassion for them. Genuine compassion. You're not just saying it because it sounds good, but you mean it. You really want them to be healed and delivered because you know that they're probably not going to go to heaven. So, all right, I guess that's it. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Facebook and YouTube. All righty, bye-bye.